Hey, what's up? So if I was to give this out of 5, I would give this a 4.5 out of 5. It's a pretty great experience. Now, I wouldn't call this a stand-up special. We are talking about Jimmy Foxx. What happened was, most people are going into this because they're curious about what happened to him. If you remember very well, Jimmy Foxx like a year ago, had a stroke, and everyone was speculating. There were controversies around whatever happened to him, and even after he came back, there were controversies around that. And this particular special is timely and perfect for Jimmy Foxx, number one, to talk about what happened, number two, to actually come back. Yes, I believe this for him is important in that it's a comeback for him. And this time he was in Atlanta where it all happened. And one of the phrases that he uses a lot is Atlanta saved my life. Now, you at first you hear that and you don't quite understand the impact of what he's trying to say until now he gets into it. Now, this event, because I don't want to call it a stand-up special, because he does three things very well. Number one, he is a very good storyteller, and you get to see that. You get to see him open up with like a very good way of describing what happened to him, what happened to him after. And then at some point you go back down to this comedy because he was blending that in very well. But at some point in the middle, he goes into impressions, he goes into like some really comedic impressions that we've seen him do before. And he repeats the same thing, but now he's slightly more confident. Then after that, a surprise moment. I didn't actually see this coming, and I think that's one of the genius about this show, because already it was getting super emotional, but at some point he brings out someone else. For people who've not seen this, spoiler alert, he brings out his 14-year-old daughter. Number one, I like how he set it up because it becomes super emotional. Man, I was almost crying, man. I was almost crying because of how he set her up. And then you think that it's going to end there, and then he goes like, can we actually do something? Can they actually sing? And they sing. And I thought you moved from him telling a story, then you moved to him doing a few impressions, going much more into comedy. Then you go into this super emotional moment with the father-daughter moment, which I thought was really, really good. And it goes to show you the relationship between him and his daughter, because the show was actually opened by his daughter. So you get that father-daughter theme going across. And then you go back to a few more comedic moments. You go back to him now talking about, now bringing out the stand-up element about some event that followed up after what happened to him. There are a lot of Halle Berry moments. There's this character called Holly who he talks about. And then at the end, and during also that process, he becomes it feels like a church service at some point, because it starts becoming very religious and talking about God and talking about his conversation with God and how that affects his ego. At a moment, you see Jimmy Foxx confront his own ego from where he thinks God would look at him, the idea of who Jimmy Foxx is and why this happened to him. So I thought that was really, really well done. Now, at the end, again, you go back into a church service, then you have music again. And then he goes in there, before that, he does like a greatest hit of Jimmy Foxx, where he talks about who he is, the ego, the Jimmy Foxx, the big name, the musician, Ray, all these characters that he's played. And that does a good job of putting you in his mind in terms of how he was looking at himself when whatever was happening to him was happening to him, because he's this person who's been all these great characters, he's produced all these great hits, and suddenly this happened to him. Yeah, and he does that very well. And then of course the piano comes out, he sits in front of a piano and he just plays, and there's some funny moments with him being a clone, or whether he's not a clone or not, but then he confirms that he's not a clone, because again now he goes into white women, black women, which he did very tastefully. Then he goes on into some familiar territories in terms of FU, and then turns that around. So I thought that moment with the guitar, I saw that coming because it's Jimmy Foxx. I mean, the man cannot step away from music. And so he wraps it all with a nice song. There's a song that he did, I found myself singing. And I thought this was really effective, not as a stand-up event, but just as a Jimmy Foxx show, because he was very, very good at it. And what I came to realize at the end is that he actually wrote and directed it. And that's why you saw a lot of his signature things that we've seen him do in his special, which includes singing, telling stories. We see that a lot in this stand-up special, in this event, because I thought he did that very, very well. So I thought he was really good at tapping into our emotions, getting us to feel something. And I think that's what entertainment is designed to do, which is make you feel something. And he does that very, very well using music, using storytelling, using humor. It was like a roller coaster of emotions. One moment you are really in a sober mood, next moment you're laughing, then you're almost crying, the next minute you're singing, the other minute you're laughing, then the other minute you're singing along to whatever he's saying. So I thought it was really, really well constructed. I don't know if the full show was like that, but what he was able to do, this was a really good comeback for him. Number one, as a performer, number two, as a writer, number three, as a director, because it's tightly directed. You don't feel fatigued. It's a very, very solid and lean 1 hour, because it takes you through so many emotions, and his delivery actually works very well for him. Now, his stage presence, of course, it's there because he moves around the stage very, very confidently, and very, very, he commands the stage. It's still Jamie Foxx. Even with the emotional moments, you can see him control himself. You can see him take control of what he's saying. And you have also the close-ups to actually put you in his mind. Yeah, so I thought this was great. Give it a chance. It's one of the most rewatchable things. I actually watched it last night. I woke up this morning and actually just went through it to not go into this review and start talking about how emotional it was. Just try to look at it from a very logical point. So remember to always watch what you enjoy and enjoy what you watch. I shall see you on the next one. Adios.